Finishes and factions catching action.
Hi, I'm Rich.
And hey, I'm Adam.
Welcome to this week's episode of
Finishers and Factions NXT Edition. Available on all of your favourite podcast platforms as an Audible.
here on YouTube, where you get to hang out with us as well. So, without further ado, let's crack into NXT.
And we're back talking about NXT this week from the Capitol Wrestling Center in Orlando. After last week, we said quite a lot that we didn't really have a lot of experience in consuming NXT content, especially more recent stuff. So, yeah, we found these, especially last week, difficult to watch. I mean, Rich, did you find it any easier this week, or?
For the first half of it, I got quite into it. The end of it was reasonable as well. It was that middle section of this week that really kind of bored me. It was a bit of a push through to kind of finish it, and then say with the start of the main event, and then it got better as it got on. But most of it was a bit lackluster for me this week, I think. But
yeah, fair enough. I know I had there were bits of it for me as well. It's difficult to sort of pinpoint, but I know. A bit like Raw, I could pick out my best match and my worst match, which we'll sort of cover as we go through. But NXT started a little bit differently than last week. It actually did a recap of New Year's Evil, which was last week's NXT, which we went through. We've got the episode up on the YouTube channel. Go and check it out. Yeah. Moving on to this week's episode, we started off with a in-ring promo by our new NXT champion Oba Femi doing his victory lap, and it blows me away how over he is with the NXT crowd. He's getting a lot of fan interaction without having to do an awful lot, which is always nice to see.
Yeah, and I think some of the things he was saying as well are quite. They resonated a lot with the crowd. You know, he was busy explaining how a lot of his stuff what he'd accomplished was backed by destiny, and now he'd finally sort of got there. And it was a phrase he used a few times, and that being, the NXT champion was his destiny, and he was finally there. And with his normal sort of attitude, from what we can tell over the last sort of couple of weeks, is. He's going to be that like iron fist ruler of NXT, and he's going to do with NXT as he sees fit, with Ava's permission, of course.
Yeah, I mean, very sort of. I've made note of the fact that there were two very different ends of the respect scale for his two opponents from last week.
Yes,
Eddie Thorpe, zero respect for Eddie Thorpe. Real deep-seated hatred there for him.
It take him out last week as well, so that follows on from you're not going to beat someone up and then come out next week and be like, oh yeah, no, I love the guy, I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, no, of course, but in the same breath, he did a number on Trick Williams as well, and still came out and was very respectful of the former NXT champion.
They did acknowledge a lot of his titles and records that he held, but yeah. It was interesting to see the way he described it as well, though. Trick Williams is great, holds all these records, but he found his ceiling.
Yeah, which he said a lot. He said pretty much all of the NXT locker room had this ceiling. All of theirs was in different places, but Oba Femi feels that he doesn't have a ceiling at all.
It feels a bit like me, to be fair. He's got a bit of an ego.
Well, yeah. And the fact that he's holding the strap tells us that he's got a right to feel that he's got a right to that ego.
Of course.
Somebody else who's holding a strap who interrupted the Oba Femi's victory lap was Tony D'Angelo, the current North American Men's Champion.
Yeah, well, he came in and kind of told Oba Femi that he basically welcome to the big leagues. So it'll be interesting to see how big the big leagues are compared to Oba Femi, because he's a big fella.
Well, the big thing that that Tony seemed to really want to get across was the fact that he was very interested in becoming a double champion. Obviously, current holder of the North American champion. That may mean we see him make a vie for the NXT championship soon as well. But
Could be a champion versus
Tony
champion match.
Tony D'Angelo has one big roadblock in his way, and that roadblock's name is Ridge Holland, who we also saw come out and sort of this thing between D'Angelo and Holland seemed to almost eclipse the fact that Obafemi was in the ring. Had it not been for the fact that at the very end of this promo, we had Eddie Thorpe blindside Femi with, I don't know if it was it looked like a fireman's hose. I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure what that was, but he definitely came out and attacked him with something. So,
Bit steep when you get shown up in your own victory lap, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. But that was how we left that promo, and then we cut to a backstage locker room promo with
Dante Shan, Oro Mensah.
Yeah, I mean, Oro Mensah wasn't really a massive component in this promo, as he seemed to leave as our other participant came in, which was Ethan Page, who I remember from last week getting a bit of a pat on the back from the final boss, The Rock, on his NXT debut last week.
I don't know about you, Adam. I know we've both been pretty off topic when it comes to NXT, but Ethan Page reminds me very much of an MJF style figure. Just a bit of an arrogant prick that seems to run his mouth quite a lot.
You see, I never likened him to MJF, and I will be honest, it's because I completely forgot about MJF because I'm not really watching AEW programming at the moment. When I looked at Ethan Page, I was seeing early Miz, which was very similar.
Good show, yeah, no, definitely. At least Ethan Page is allowed to get dressed in the locker room and not the cleaning closet.
Well, part of this promo was the fact that none of the rest of the NXT men's roster really want Ethan Page anywhere near them at the minute. He's
cleaning closet
he seems to have been on a bit of a rampage, whereas all the Miz had to do was eat some chicken in the locker room and he got kicked out. So,
I can't believe they tossed him for that.
But Ethan Page came in bragging about his interactions with The Rock, doing really piss poor impersonations, in my view.
They were bad, weren't they?
And yeah,
that bad. They were kind of funny in a way, I suppose.
But roughly. But yeah, Chen seemed to take real exception to this, and that promo ends with him running off to Ava to
Seal the deal.
a singles match. Set up a singles match later on in the night,
which leads us on to another singles match that we had last night as well, which is one I was looking forward to.
So this was match one on the card. This was a number one contenders match, which I'd have to look back in my notes from last week on NXT, but I'm pretty sure Stephanie Baker, one of the participants on this, was in a number one contenders match last week as well.
She was, yeah. So she won a fatal four-way last week to become the number one contender to face Fallon Henley for her Women's North American Championship. And technically she is the number one contender for that title. But because Shotzi pinned Fallon Henley clean in the middle of the ring in the six-woman tag match that they had last week on NXT, she kind of popped her head in and was like, look, I pinned her clean. Like, surely that makes me number one contender. Like, you don't pin the champion clean and not get something for it. So Ava, our good old general manager that we see quite a few times, not as much this week, I will throw out, but see quite a lot, decided that Shotzi was going to go up against Stephanie Baker. And it wasn't really for the number one contenders for the championship as such. It was who faces her next, which is a little bit weird because even if Stephanie loses, she's still the number one contender. But Shotzi gets the next match in 2 weeks' time in Atlanta for the NXT Center Stage if she wins. The same as Baker would if she was to win the match as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we had one of the biggest things for me, and I remember asking you this before we started recording, was a severe lack of commentary up to this point. It was, I remember sitting watching it, and it took me quite aback. I mean, the commentary team in any WWE promotion are generally pretty pronounced. You know, they're there, to tell the story. And without that direction, it was really difficult to sort of get into to begin with. And then all of a sudden, about 2 to 3 minutes into the match, it's almost as if somebody unmuted the commentary team, and all of a sudden they were back in the game. But
waiting for Booker T to probably make a couple of remarks that maybe weren't needed.
Well, yes.
Most of Booker T's commentary.
But yeah, with this match, it wasn't a bad match. It was lots of sort of high risk, which I've come to expect from Baker and Shotzi. It's very much in their wheelhouse.
High risk, high profile, very entertaining.
I mean, Shotzi seemed very much in control in this match, from what I remember, from what I saw. But Baker definitely showed a more brutal, savage side of her in this match that we didn't really get to see in the Fatal 4-Way last week.
I think when too many people are in the ring at the same time, you don't really get to see what each one of them has to offer. So it is nice seeing people go one-on-one, because you do have that extra ring space, the extra time to be able to get things out. And in a Fatal 4-Way, you've got 3 other people trying to cave your head in all the time. And it doesn't matter who you are, you've got 3 other people trying to do it. Where one-on-one, you know, you've just got one to deal with.
Well, this is how it normally plays out. However, in this case, it seemed that both Jacy Jayne and current women's US title holder Fallon Henley wanted to get involved at this. Wanted to get involved in trying to handpick who they wanted to go through, and
wouldn't necessarily say Jacy Jayne did too much to interrupt. I mean, she came running in and then got laid out pretty quickly.
See, I put this down as her running in for a distraction. She was there. It was pure misdirection, and you've got Fallon Henley sneaking in through the crowd to deliver a belt shot to Baker, who I think was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. If
she went to bounce back off the ropes, didn't she? So could have been anyone.
Yeah, it literally was a complete coin toss. I don't think there was any sort of premeditation for it, but Shotzi ends up picking the win because, again, Baker in wrong place at the wrong time, and we had the US title shot booked match set for 2 weeks at NXT in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep, that's for Center Stage, and that's Shotzi versus Fallon Henley for the Women's North American Championship.
Yeah, I mean,
it'd be a good match.
I mean, I was going to say I've seen Shotzi on wrestle on a number of different occasions. She's a bit of an NXT veteran now. She's done some main roster stuff as well. I think I've seen her in a few Rumbles in the past. I'm sure she's made appearances there.
Might even see her again this year in that one that pops up. Obviously, you've got the Women's Royal Rumble coming up in about 2 weeks now, isn't it? 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, definitely. But moving swiftly on, we went to another backstage promo, this time to the women's locker room, where Sol Ruka was commiserating Kalani Jordan, who just doesn't seem to have been able to shake off the loss in the Fatal 4-Way last week.
No, and neither of them really in the Fatal 4-Way. Like, I don't remember Kalani doing much in that match. There's a few times that you could probably pinpoint if you rewatched it, but off the top of my head, I can't really can't really think of anything. So I don't really know why she's being commiserated on losing a match that she wasn't really part of to remember anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, between this week and last week, up to this point, Kalani Jordan just seemed like a bit of a yawn to me. Really, when she first came out, there was nothing truly remarkable about her, and considering that she was in this fatal four-way with uh, three other talents that I had no idea about. I mean, Kalani Jordan was the one that I cared the least about out of those four, and yeah, I'm just seeing somebody who's just feeling a bit sorry for themselves, really. And we had Zariah to give her the biggest dose of truth, basically telling her to pull her head out of her ass,
Right.
and try and use all these negative feelings to push her to be better next time, so she can actually win.
To which then
Uh,
you have Cora Jade coming in and basically saying, "Look, I should have won last week. I'd have slapped you stupid." But again,
Again, Corey.
that fatal four way. I think we said it last week, and I'd say if you want to go back and check out what we said about that match last week, I'll put the episode link in the comments at the end. None of them really stood out at all, to be fair, apart from Vega.
Stephanie Baker.
Yeah, apart from Stephanie Baker. Sorry, you'll have to excuse me there. Mine went blank and I didn't have my notes up. So
That's all good.
to see her go into that next stage was nice, but yeah, the rest of them I didn't really think much of. But
Yeah, I mean,
it does
Cora
kind of
Jade seems Cora Jade's main talent for me seems to be running her mouth, and Kalani Jordan did the first semi-interesting thing that I've seen her do, which was a absolute huge bitch slap to Cora Jade, basically get her to shut her mouth. And we're possibly set for a match for them later on in the night as it goes.
yeah, definitely. But then that then led us up to the next point where we had yet another out of ring promo with Obafemi and Ava having a conversation.
Yeah, conversation about Eddie Thorpe's attack right at the top of the show. Basically, Femi wanting to give Thorpe an opportunity, and Ava just not wanting to reward bad behaviour. Ava very much sort of taking on a parent role here, which
And they are
I
like
seem to
two
remember.
toddlers, these two.
I seem to remember making this comparison last week, but it was very much a case that because we saw Ava in every single freaking promo last week, it felt like she was having to really sort of lend herself to let the show amble through. And
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, we don't see her that much this week, but very much sort of, very much sort of that presence being felt, and a little bit her being led by the talent rather than her leading the talent to a certain degree.
Is she
Introduced
trying
to
to
another
make
new.
life easier for herself, though, and in the long run, it's going to make her a bit of a walkover, and we could have an interesting sort of coup effect.
Yeah, I mean, we had a couple of other faces in the background. One of them, Mr. Stone, who to me sort of came across as a bit of a spineless git. To be honest, it didn't really seem to. It reminded me of the snake from Jungle Book.
Yes.
Car just sort of slithering in, trying to plead, just trying to basically make himself look as good as he possibly could.
Oh,
But
so
ultimately,
NXT's equivalent of the Miz.
yeah, pretty much.
A lot of hate on the Miz this week.
Yeah, we really are ripping into the Miz something rotten. But after that match on Raw, I think he fucking deserves it. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, no. We ended up NXT title match for next week. Obafemi versus Eddie Thorpe, which hopefully will stop Thorpe from running his mouth. But I severely doubt that'll do anything, to be quite honest.
I mean,
Um,
could do. You never know. This,
Doesn't seem likely at this point.
but talking about people who like to run their mouth with Eddie Thorpe, that's the perfect run into our next match, which was Ethan Page and Dante Shan.
Yeah, so this was the match that was set up earlier in the night. Um, Basically, yeah, started with Ethan Page, who, as you quite rightly put it, likes to run his mouth, and Dante Chen, who was really looking for an excuse to shut it, basically.
Oh, I'd
But
love to help
this
him.
match, this match was over in 2 minutes,
Yeah, I'm really
and it
really
was a
disappointed
squash
with it.
match.
Yeah, and I didn't get it.
It was a squash match, and it, I think this is more playing into maybe Page's storyline a little bit. I mean, we saw him remove Chen's boot after the match ended.
Yeah, well, he's already
and
caused so many injuries to other people, isn't he? So he was trying to injure Chen.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
he did.
he's
Still.
broken somebody's wrist. Javon Evans is
Broken jaw.
out with an annihilated jaw. And now it looks like Chen is likely to be out with possibly a
Foot/ankle.
fracture or a break,
Yeah.
something along those lines. It's not going to be.
But you mentioned Javon Evans with having that broken jaw. He still busted lightning and run his ass out there to save him.
He did. He came out trying to get some retribution, but unfortunately, because that jaw is still completely shattered, it just took one swift jab to the jaw, and
He was dribbling crimson again when he all over the map.
Yeah, we got color again this month. We got color again on NXT this week, which some people like to see, some people aren't so fond of. I mean,
I'm a fan of colour.
pretty impartial to it.
I'm a fan
I'm
of
pretty
colour.
impartial to it. But Page is currently being painted as a complete sort of. I was undecided
Psycho.
as to whether to describe him as a sociopath or a psychopath. I'm not entirely sure. He definitely falls into one of those two categories, but it's not something I know a tremendous amount about. But yeah, he's definitely giving off some unstable vibes at the moment, which, yeah, he's out for. He is out to annihilate the rest, truly annihilate the rest of the competition. And eventually we're going to need to come up with somebody, or Ava's going to have to come up with somebody that can put a stop to him, and
Wow.
that's where this story ends.
I think we might have that. I've got a feeling the person to stop Ethan Page going on his rampage could possibly be the current NXT champion, Obafemi.
I mean, he'd definitely be a candidate, but we
being
know
a
how
big lad he
storylines
is.
generally. We know how these storylines generally tend to play out. I think we're going to have I think Javon Evans. He's already showed he's willing to try and jump back in the ring even before he's fully healed.
Like an unsanctioned thing, maybe.
It's going to end up being something. If he does much more damage than what we've been told he's done to his jaw, he's going to be out of action for good. So it could end up being
Retirement match.
a career match as it goes.
I'd be interested.
But we'll have to see how that plays out as time goes on.
Definitely.
This next promo, we talked about again before the recording started a little bit. So, and we both sort of agreed that this one took us out the loop a lot, because it was very much peeks into everybody's life.
Well, so it started off with Dion Lennox and Obafemi having a bit of a conversation.
We did also see a small cameo of Shawn Michaels in the background, talking with his superstar I didn't recognise, but that was something I picked out. I spotted the
I
cowboy
didn't
hat in
spot
the
that at all.
background.
I didn't spot that. I'll have to go back and have a little
Go
look.
back and I was going to say, go back and watch it. You'll spot him in the background.
If
He's
you
in
know
there
who
in the
that
initial
superstar was, chat, well, let us know in the
part. Drop
comments.
it in the comments.
If you know who that
Drop it in the
superstar was,
comments.
drop it like it's hot. Get it in those comments. Let us know.
100%. But yeah, we had Dion Lennox, who was expressing some interest in Obafemi in a potential future title shot, wanting an opportunity to try and take the strap off Obafemi. But
If he
Femi
thinks
just
he's
didn't
big
really
enough.
seem to want to. Yeah, doesn't seem to want to do anything with that.
Everyone seems to
Um,
want to tell him that they're going to take his strap, but no one yet has really had the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is. But obviously, Eddie Thorpe's getting that opportunity next week, so
yeah, this is it. It will be over Femi's first title defense.
mm.
But yeah,
And after
in this
that,
promo, we heard some rumblings of what sounded like an argument in the background. We then got panned across to
Ms. Rizzo and
Sean
Sean
Spears.
Spears.
Yeah, Sean Spears and Adriana Rizzo, who I think Rizzo being possibly from New York. Um, that was the worst accent in the world.
That was bad, but to be fair, all I've got going through my head right now is the Muppets. Rizzo
Right,
sounds
okay.
like a Muppet.
Yeah, no, it is, isn't it? He's got the hook nose. But
Are
yeah,
you making
Sean.
Are you making a joke
No,
there?
no, that's not a nose joke at your on your
No,
expense.
Rizzo the rat
Make-
is not the guy with the hook nose. He is the guy with the rat.
Oh no, the guy with the hook nose is Gonzo. It genuinely wasn't a nose. It wasn't a nose plug, I swear. Although I'm
Alright,
pretty
well,
sure
moving on
Gonzo
slowly.
didn't know.
We then also
Pretty
had
sure we-
Izzy
No,
come
fuck
in.
off, fuck off.
and talk.
You can let me get this joke out at least. If we were looking to plug your nose, we'd need bath plugs rather than nose plugs. Now we can move on.
Fine, yeah, now we get to talk about Izzy coming in and telling Sean Spears that no one likes him and no one wants him. No one needs him.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Spears seems to be on a bit of a crusade to try and save Rizzo and Izzy from D'Angelo. So D'Angelo seems to be coming up quite a lot. Tony D'Angelo, current US champion. Basically, I don't know if Spears is holding some kind of candle for her or something of that notion. But yeah,
I'm
it
waiting
seems
for
to
the
be
story to progress so I can try and work out what's gone on previously by what happens futurely.
Well, we see that after Spears leaves, it's a case that uh, Dame is telling Rizzo that she doesn't owe anything to D'Angelo anymore. Her and D'Angelo are square. So something's obviously gone on that me and you are unaware of at this point.
Sounds about right, to be fair. But like I said, we've only been watching NXT for the last 2 weeks, so we are still trying to catch up on a lot of things that you guys know that we don't. So if
Yeah.
we've missed something out or you can explain something to us that we've missed, then feel free. That is
And then
definitely
this,
something we can do.
This promo seemed to pan again into something completely unrelated, which
Yeah.
was Carmen Petrovic and
Ashanti
Shanti Adonis. Basically,
announcing they're
was
together.
it was shamelessly flirting, and I think they've been maybe skirting around the issue a little bit up to this point, maybe.
Dancing
but-
with the devil a little bit too much. They finally managed to get it done.
Yeah, 100%, and that was how that promo ended. So, yeah, well done to them, pair. I suppose. I don't really know what more to say about that.
And then it goes into the next promo.
Yeah, so we had a VT recap of the NXT Women's Championship match from last week, which was Roxanne Perez versus Julia, and a confirmation that Julia will be making her debut appearance as NXT Women's Champion next week. So it is the week of champions next.
Is she defending next week? Did I miss an announcement for that? Or
They didn't confirm. They didn't confirm anything that I'm aware of just at the moment, unless it's in some of my notes from later in the episode. But we may circle back to that if I come across anything.
Yeah, no, I'll have to. I'll have a little look at them.
Then we went into an interview promo with the current WWE Tag Champs DIY, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, who were not in their rightful place. Realistically, these guys aren't supposed to be in NXT, but
Well, I suppose they are NXT born and bred, wouldn't they?
well, yeah, they are originally from NXT. They are some of the original class of.
Two-time NXT Tag Champions, I believe. Tommaso Ciampa corrected the interviewee.
Yes, I believe she did. But yeah, basically they are on site with NXT to come and view the main event, which is a tag team championship match with the champions Braxium versus OTM later in the card, citing them as some potential competition in the future. So DIY aren't feeling any real threat from any of the current crop in the main roster, which could be their downfall, really.
Yeah, no, definitely could be.
But moving swiftly on again from that is going into the third match. It was a women's tag team match with Unholy Union, which is Isla Dawn and Aloha Fire.
I think that was the name. I didn't write them down. I must admit, there was a lot of things being said at the time that I just couldn't really work out who was who, and they.
Well,
I don't know
think it was.
about
I
you.
don't think it was particularly. Oh, go.
They've got like a really bad habit of bringing in one wrestler, disappearing off and talking about something else, and then bringing the other one in. And by the time I've kind of tried to adjust my notes and gone, right, so this is the match, right, so this is the first team in, brilliant, and then it's like, oh, promo, right, I need to cross that out, put that promo in, right, that person. Oh, I've forgotten who that person's name was because I was walking, and then I just got confuddled. So, and I must admit I was running a little bit later watching it than I wanted to be, so didn't really feel the need to go back and look at names that I can get for next week.
So I always like to look up names, because I'm trying to learn the roster as I go, and it helps with possible past storylines and things like that I may come across. So we had Unholy Union versus the Meta Girls. Now I had to do some real research on this tag team, which was Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend. Now, the Meta Girls are actually part of an ongoing faction called the Meta 4, which were established back in 2023. So they've been going a good old while as far as a faction goes, operating within NXT and basically making a nuisance of themselves.
Isn't that the whole point of a faction, though?
I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Most of them tend to make a nuisance of themselves. Look at DX, for example.
True. Nobody made as much of a nuisance of themselves, but they put their nuisance making to some good use during the Monday Night Wars at one stage.
Oh, yes, they did.
I mean, most famously driving a tank up to the doors of WCW's Monday Night Wars taping and knocking on the door ever so politely.
Can we come in?
But back to the match at hand. This one was a number one contenders match for the NXT Women's Tag Champions. The current NXT Tag Champions were not in attendance at this one, which is unusual. But I think they did allude to the fact that they were watching somewhere in the background, where they might have been able to get a better view of what was going on. I mean,
my notes for this weren't very big, to be fair. I found what I was watching was quite even at the beginning of the section. You remember me saying that I found some of the middle of the episode got a little bit tedious. This match for me was what pulled me completely out of this episode. I didn't find it held many highlights, and there's not very much in it that made it too memorable for me. But I know that you look at different things within the wrestling match. So, what were your thoughts and opinions on this one?
I mean, I generally tend to find with this that it's a case that you could look at the two of us as a commentary team for WWE at this point, because I have a tendency to go by play, and you're more of a color commentator. You generally tend to you'll focus on the the overall match itself, whereas I'll dig into the detail a little bit more. Which, hey, it works for WWE.
Welcome to take on a job if you've got one, Triple H. We'll work an announce table somewhere.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's come out.
Please not NXT.
It's come out in the last few days that Corey Graves has decided that demotion from what was it, Monday Night Raw to NXT, that just wasn't worth the
he's
paper
not happy.
it was written on.
Well, you say that. There was a statement just before we started recording this section from the WWE higher ups that basically just said that if he's telling you it was a work, then he's probably going to build it into a work. At the time, he was definitely shooting. So, it'd be interesting to see. I don't think, unless they make an angle out of the Corey Graves thing, we won't hear too much more about it at all. They'll fire him and he'll go to social media and say something about it.
Or he'll just go to AEW and tell everybody exactly what's happened. So it's all perfectly possible at this point. But the less said about Corey Graves is he does not feature in this women's tag team championship at this number one contenders match at all. But Meta Girls seem to dominate quite early doors. They were the powerhouse. Well, I say they. Lash Legend was an absolute powerhouse in this match.
Yeah.
It seemed to be a bit of untested metal from what I saw, or what I was gathering from the commentary team. It's kind of a case that Lash hasn't had many matches in this, and she's still a bit of an unproven element, but very much got some good licks in on this one. And one of the big highlights of this match for me was sort of a high-risk totem diving mood that...
the standing on the shoulders job.
Yeah.
That was good, yeah. Standing on the shoulders and turning it into a crossbody. There's some aspects like that were interesting. I've not seen anyone else try something like that for a while.
It backfired on Meta Girls on this occasion. It was a good concept, but it backfired, giving Unholy Union a brief advantage. But yeah, they just overall... Unholy Union just didn't really stand a chance against Lash Legend. I didn't really see much of Jakara Jackson in this, other than looking like she just sniffed a fart, really. Was what I was the overall getting.
Yeah.
She just got... Jakara Jackson, to me, just seems to have a very severe case of resting bitch face. Or resting stank face, depending on which way the wind's blowing, I suppose. But yeah, not really much to go on this match. Meta Girls came out with the win, which puts them in the number one contenders spot for the NXT Women's Tag Champs, a match I'm sure we will see either in the next few weeks, possibly even left until the next NXT pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, I think it will probably more than likely be 2 weeks' time at Center Stage in Atlanta.
Possibly, or we could be waiting until Vengeance Day, which is taking place in Washington, D.C. on the 15th of February.
That could be an interesting one. Something else is coming up on that day as well, but I can't remember off the head what it is.
I mean, it's the day after Valentine's Day, so...
Yeah, I mean, today it just means I've got work. It's a Saturday, but...
It's the worst morning in history to be a hotel porter that has to clean rooms.
Oh.
It's the oldest hospitality joke in the world. You don't work as a hotel cleaner on February 15th.
Especially not if Bonnie Blue's been in your establishment.
Oh, well, I don't think you'd need to... I think you'd probably just be better off burning the room, to be quite honest. But yeah, let's not get bogged down in that. It sounds like enough people have been bogged down in that as it stands at the moment anyway. So
but talking about bogged down, we get to talk with Ava again when she's busy watching Lexis King get the plate changed on his massive cup.
Yeah,
that he won last week at NXT's New Year's Evil.
yeah, it was a congratulatory moment that was sadly interrupted by the no quarter catch crew. They were pegged as in the little bars that appear below their name, but this was actually Charlie Dempsey, the former Heritage Cup holder,
Who
and
Lexis King
Ren
beat last week.
Sinclair. Yeah, and Ren Sinclair, who seemed to be ironing out more for a fight than Charlie Dempsey did. I think Dempsey was pretty much content to just say, "Do you know what? Actually, yeah,
Fucking have
fair
it."
play." But Ren Sinclair was very much sort of talking about the incidental contact that they had during toward the end of their match. The head to the plums was never going to take
No.
the sting out of that, and I think Ren Sinclair is stinging about that more than Dempsey was. I mean, he'd take the rematch if he was going to do it, but
Didn't seem too bothered, did he?
and Ava seemed to agree after a little bit of cajoling, but even that was cut short from a crash into the corrugated steel outside, where a parking lot brawl ensues between Tony D'Angelo and Ridge Holland.
Right. I'm right. I've said that I've struggled with NXT the last 2 weeks. I will throw this out there. I want to see what they do with that. I know we've got a rough idea what they do with it, but I can't wait to see what they do with it.
Yeah,
This actually has a little bit of excitement for me within this, because this feels like it's a new story. So for me, this could be the entry into NXT that I need, and that could be Ridge Holland and Tony D'Angelo.
All's hoping, otherwise this is going to be a really short segment each week.
Right.
But we went from that. After that, I'd been sort of broken up a little bit to match 4, which was a singles match made earlier in the night.
Kalani Jordan and Cora Jade.
Kalani Jordan and Cora Jade.
You bastards, you got me too.
Sorry, even if I talk about it, I'm just not feeling I'm not feeling the reasoning behind Jordan's push at the moment.
I'm just going to throw this out there because we've both just yawned. If we got you, tell us.
Oh, 100%.
If we just got you, yeah. Did we get you yawning too?
But interestingly enough, I mean, since this was broadcast, it's come out as quite a wide-realming thing, and you'll see a lot of content creators creating content around this deal. But TNA and WWE have signed a multi-year talent exchange deal, which is absolutely huge. I mean, WWE, NXT, and TNA did something similar earlier at sort of midway through last year, which was really successful for them. I'm really glad they're going back to the well and sort of going back to this.
The
but
image I saw was rather interesting, and I think it was the one I sent you. It was the one of the Hardy Boys with the TNA tag titles around their shoulders, hinting they could make an appearance somewhere at some time to defend the TNA tag titles in WWE. So that would be an interesting one.
Well, as we record this, so we're recording this on a Friday. This Sunday, so Sunday the 19th of January, is TNA Genesis. One of the matches on that card is the Hardy Boys defending their tag team championships. The challengers' names escape me right at this moment, although I can see the vacant look on Rich's eyes tells me that he's doing a bit of research. So
yeah,
I'll keep chattering
at the moment. So the Hardy Boys are facing the Rascals, which is Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, for the tag team, or the TNA World Tag Team Championships. No, actually, no, I've looked that up. That Genesis card looks like a really interesting night.
Well, I was about to say that the Genesis card I was looking at earlier on, and it is looking really good. I mean, we're big fans of one of the main events of Genesis, which is Nick Nemeth, who WWE fans will know by a slightly different name.
Dolph Ziggler.
Yes, 100%. And I mean, Rich, do you believe?
Well, you've just got to say his name, and he appears. Nick.
And I think that there's going to be a lot of people saying that name at Genesis on Sunday night.
That is Joe Hendry.
It certainly is. And a bit of backstory for anybody that doesn't know why Rich has broken down in his little girl giggles. It's because he has basically overplayed Joe Hendry's entry music. That his wife does not enjoy it at all.
Chantal does not believe in Joe Hendry.
She does not believe in Joe Hendry at all.
No, she does not.
The reason I brought up the TNA multi-year deal is because one of the things that we see during the Jordan versus Jade match this evening is the current TNA Knockouts champion
Masha Slamovich.
Yeah, is in the crowd, and I did see something that came out after NXT was broadcast. Circulated by WWE, I believe, was a small meeting between Slamovich and Shawn Michaels backstage, which again, I think if you looking back on it with the Knockouts champion in situ on the night of NXT, followed up by that little backstage promo that WWE posted out on social media. I think anybody could have predicted this multi-year deal with TNA.
So Masha Slamovich has got a match against Rosemary in a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match for the TNA Knockouts World Championship. Now, I have no idea what that is, but I am half tempted to give it a watch next week just for a few matches, because I really want to know what that is.
So there's so much that is just so intriguing about Genesis's card, and unfortunately, it's not Genesis's card that we're actually supposed to be talking about at the moment. It is Jordan and Jade's match, but I think the fact that we've spent so long fixated on Genesis's card
shows us the quality of this Kalani Jordan versus Cora Jade match. To be fair,
very evenly contested match, not sort of horrifically exciting. There was no heat built in. There was no build up to this match other than the fifth promo of the evening where this match was the sort of the seeds for this match were sown. It very much had vibes of Miz and Sami Zayn from Raw that we talked about earlier in this episode. But
it was, and the finish was poor.
Yeah,
disguised eye rake and a push and a pin. To be fair,
Cora Jade picked up the win on this one. I mean, Jordan towards the end of this match became slightly more interested in that. I saw a bit more of a vicious streak, but it just wasn't worked to her advantage. It seemed to be that she saw the red mist descended. She lost sight of everything, which is what allowed Cora Jade to pull off this eye rake finish. And yeah, just a very sort of poor match, and I'm not going to wait until the end. That was my worst match of this card, pretty much. Kalani Jordan and versus Cora Jade in a singles match just wasn't there for me, not at all. But yeah, we were then treated to a social media video that Eddie Thorpe made earlier in the evening and had posted to his socials about celebrating the fact that he got a title shot next week.
I don't think it'll do him much good, but let him have his fun, I suppose.
It'd be interesting to know if he it was difficult for me to tell from what I saw, but I'd be interested to know if he did that before, because he seemed to be out in a parking lot somewhere. I don't know if that meant that he was out in the same parking lot that D'Angelo was having a brawl in earlier in episode. But
Oh yeah.
we were then treated to another backstage promo ahead of the tag title match, where we saw Fraxium, Nathan Frazier, and Axiom backstage being approached by Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inomaru.
Which kind of finished with a bit of a back end brawl between Briggs and Inamaru and DTM. Fraction kind of, yeah, they didn't really have much to say or do with it. They disappeared and kind of went to do their warm up, I suppose. There was everyone else that tended to get involved and kind of got on with it.
Yeah, and this sort of, I think this may have set up a possible feud in the future potentially, but I'm not sure who the feud was between because there didn't seem to be a clear-cut direction to it. Yes, OTM and Fraser and Inamaru were the ones brawling by the end of it, but it just, I'm not seeing the direction in that for it.
No.
We were also after this, following this, we were told about or given a small VT about Vengeance Day in Washington, which is the next PLE. We were also told that Trick Williams had put out a statement that he's considering his next move, which I suppose means that he may be out of the NXT title picture for a little while. And this sort of fed into the main event, the men's NXT Tag Team Championship match between OTM, Bronco Nima, and Lucian Price versus the current champs Fraxium, who were in the promo beforehand. And do you know what? I wasn't mad at this match. It wasn't a great match. I'm not saying it was 5 stars. The Observer's going to be writing about this for years to come, sort of match. But for a main event on a sort of a so-so card, it was decent.
It was all right. It warmed up towards the end. It was quite a fast-paced crowd. Fast-paced start to the match. They were trying to hype the crowd up a bit, which not surprising after that Kalani Jordan match, but I digress. Talking about the crowd, you had DIY in there, the current SmackDown Tag Team Champions, just keeping an eye on what's kind of going on, and I suppose what could be prospectively, both of these teams could be on main roster by the end of the year, and they're a potential threat to the straps around their shoulders.
I will be honest, from what I saw of Fraxium, as much as they are the current tag team, and they defended their tag team championships admirably during this match, especially as they were kept trying to keep the pace as quick as possible. And you've got OTM that had more of a ground and pound style. We're just trying to keep it as slow as they possibly could, and we're succeeding up to a point. But Fraxium had a sort of some kind of high flying defensive offense thing going, which I couldn't quite wrap my head around, and I'm not seeing them as main roster material. I think they've peaked.
You think they've reached their ceiling, as Obafemi would say?
Yeah, I don't think they'll move further past this, regrettably, because 2 very capable performers. Maybe as singles they'll make their way up to the main roster, but I just don't think as a tag team they've got it in them to go much further. The OTM versus Fraxium match was my match of the night. We've still got one more bit to go through, which was the in-ring promo for Roxanne Perez, which had been teased throughout the night. Now, this is where it turns into a little bit of a monologue, because I know you're not terribly well up on this promo towards the end.
No, I was cooking dinner when this bit was on and wasn't really concentrating, didn't really have much of a time to go back to it, so I made sure I got through all the matches and the majority of the promos, but I didn't get to finish this week's episode off in time to be able to get this bit done.
This is where we blend into a little bit of a segment called Adam's Story Time, where Adam tells Rich all about the promo.
Story time with Adam.
we've had CBBC's bedtime stories with Cody Rhodes, so why not story time with Adam?
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But
There we go. BBC, if you need someone to read a book for you, Anarchy's available.
100%, and you show me the money, and I'll do it. 100%.
Just one thing:
but
stay
yeah.
away from children's hospital wards for about 20 years, right? We don't want any accusations being made.
I definitely won't fix anything. Right, but yeah, basically Perez was out recapping her tenure as NXT Women's Champion, basically saying how by the very virtue of her being champion, she raised the bar on what NXT Women's Division was. I mean, NXT Women's Division seems quite heavily featured within NXT programming over the last few weeks.
It does.
She was very gracious in defeat. Wasn't saying that Julia blindsided her or used any dirty tactics. I mean, we both watched the match from last week. There definitely wasn't any dirty tactics involved. It was, but the biggest, I mean, I think this is leading into a bit of a Perez heel turn, possibly, or maybe even a main roster elevation. She could be. I've got a feeling she may well be headed to SmackDown. The reason I think she may well be headed to SmackDown is because we had a surprise entrant in this little in-ring promo when Bayley made an appearance ahead of a SmackDown Women's Championship.
BBL Bayley's on NXT again.
Yeah, and Bayley made a triumphant and well-received return to NXT.
Nia Jax then.
Just trying to give some sage advice, really, and just said, look, Roxanne, it's not the end of the world, and regardless of what you think, it's kind of a case that the women's division will continue rising, regardless or not of whether you're wearing the belt or not.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we had the beginnings of a fight breakout by the end of the episode, basically between Bayley and Perez, which is why I've got an odd feeling we're going to see Perez elevated to main roster soon, due to pursue a feud with Bayley.
Be an interesting one.
I mean, Perez could be ending up with a skyrocket sort of ascent to main roster, where she could end up immediately becoming number one contender for the SmackDown Women's Women's Championship. It's a clear possibility, but. Yeah, I mean, I've already, as we've gone through, I've given my match of my worst and best matches. Rich, any standouts?
I think for me, that I'm stuck between two for the worst match of the night. I think it's Metaphor versus Unholy Union, or it was the Kalani Jordan Cora Jade match, and I'm probably going to swing more towards Kalani Jordan. Match of the evening for me. I don't know, it's a difficult one to be fair. I'm probably going to go with... the Stephanie Baker Shotzi match, to be fair.
Okay, you didn't tell me anything that I wasn't expecting there, realistically. I know you weren't overly enamoured with the main event of the evening. I mean, that ended up being my best match, and yeah, I think we sort of agree on the worst match of the evening. Overall, I've got to admit, the last 2 weeks of watching NXT, my biggest frustration with it all, aside from not knowing any of the storylines that have happened before the NXT era, or the Netflix era, is that all of the production value goes to Raw and SmackDown. And I'm not going to sit here and say that they shouldn't have that production value, but NXT are just
boring.
not getting the love they need. Then it's not a case of bad writing or anything like that. It's we spent 2 promos and half a match at the beginning with no commentary, and they've just been over New Year's Evil and this week's NXT. Just so many little things. And again, this is where I have a bit of a penchant for the smaller details, which can really disengage me with a program. and some of the technical errors that they've made in just the broadcast and the way that it's packaged just seem to be that's
painful.
where I'm finding it really difficult to sort of connect to a degree.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Right, I think I'm finished with NXT. What about you?
Yeah, we've run out of program for NXT, so let's move on. Let's move on to SmackDown.
That we can. Well, that's it from me.
And from me too. Thank you all for watching.
Remember, if you've enjoyed this episode and want to be notified when another one goes live,
you can click subscribe and click the notification bell to get notified every time we upload.
remember, like the video and leave any feedback you have in the comments.
And we'll see you next time on Finishers and Factions.
Goodbye.